All right. Hey, Jordan. We are round two, trying again, because we have families and children, and
Yes.
it's not always easy to sit down and talk
Right.
about comics. Um, so cool. I just wanted to jump right back into it because I've been thinking about it a lot, and I just want to recap real quick.
Yeah.
Um, you said that the New Adventures of Batman and Robin was your, like, when you were, what, 12, about 12 years old? That is what appealed to the kid in you, and then when you got a little older, you connected to some deep character struggle in Legends of the Dark Knight, and you mentioned the first series, Shaman. But I wanted to know more about that character struggle that you connected with. What was going on in that story?
So I had noticed some things that were. I had learned a few things about Bruce growing up, but never like a deep dive into his mind. And it was a story about the mask that he has. And at the time, I was, you know, coming into adulthood. We kind of learn to navigate. Of course, it's an ongoing process, but learning who we are, and that was around my first marriage, finding out who I was and who my current wife at the time was, and I had moved away from home, and there was a connection there for me because Bruce. It was right around the time. I think it was not even a few months he had been away from Gotham, and um, he had a run in with a character who ended up kind of being like an overarching villain of the story, not part of the Rogues or anything, but a pretty important key player in a bigger story that unfolded. Took place, I want to say it was in Alaska, and of course came all the way back to Gotham through a few connecting dots. And I noticed that Bruce was able to find out deeper parts about himself and his own kind of internal struggle with who the mythos of the Batman was to him that had really just been developed. And if I'm not mistaken, I just read it a few weeks ago, actually. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that it was right around the time that it took place right after year one, whenever he was donning the cape and cowl and he was adjusting. And my life at that time, there was a lot of adjusting. And of course, still is, but there was something about that story it was like layers of the character that were unfolding before me. And I felt like I was brought into a world that I didn't know existed and I didn't know that I needed, you know?
Interesting way to put it. Excuse me, you didn't know you needed it, but it was there when you needed it the most. Um, and you connected with that coming of age story of
Absolutely.
Bruce Wayne as you were coming of age and you were starting to, like you said, head into adulthood and find out who you are. And it's just like right place, right time, right comic book to really
It
connect with that
was.
character.
It was.
That's cool. And now, with so Batman's and Bruce Wayne is a character that you connect with still. Is that one of them that you just hold really close to you?
In a way, I would say it's almost more connecting with when I read those stories and those moments come to life. For just a little bit ago, I was reading a story, um, and there was a moment with Commissioner Gordon and Batman, and it's not so much about connecting now personally. It's more about the entirety of the story. It continues to find ways to come to life, even though the character's been around so long, even though there's been God knows how many writers and how many artists have brought not just this character, but many to life. There's still a way for that character to be tapped into in a way that hasn't been done before, which is, it's weird if you think about it, because if you were to take any other medium um, and try to do that, not to say it wouldn't work well, but it seems like it wouldn't reverberate with fans as much. It's almost like it still has a way to hit me in the soul, even
Hmm.
though you've read thousands of stories before.
Yeah.
It's still there. That so it is a form of connection, but not so much personally, because I got to be honest with you, I can't relate to a billionaire rich white guy if that to save my life.
Yeah, so 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 you've moved on from that character a little bit, and I
I
get
think
that because
so.
I can remember like the first characters that I really connected to. I still like them a lot, and I still read them consistently.
Sure.
But then like now it's like, well, now I'm a father, so now my the one that I connect with the most right now is Superman. And
Oh
it's
man.
like the a lot of people would say they're a really boring character, and I totally get that. But the ideals that are behind it, the themes
Yeah.
that are behind his creation, that are behind his stories and his archetype, really resonate with me now. And it's like um, you want to emulate those in a little
Yeah.
bit. Um, and you're a father too, I'm sure you understand.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, and it's like, I mean, if like after having kids, I've listened to other podcasts, people talk about it when they have kids. They're like, I'm so emotional all the time. And I'm like, and I will admit this because I've never, I've never gotten emotional reading a comic book. Like there's, they can get deep, sure, and
Sure.
they can be a bit thought provoking, and but like I was reading, and I posted it on my Instagram. It was Daniel Warren Johnson wrote like a 5-page Superman story.
Yeah.
It was part of Superman Red and Blue,
Cool.
and it is dedicated to his father, and it's so incredibly simple and minimal, where he just sets up John Kent, like Pa Kent, with this young baby that he has to take care of, and he's speaking to a pastor. He's like, I don't know if I can do it. Like I don't know if I've got it in me. And the pastor's and like it's the overwhelming, like I have to be a dad. Like every waking, it's like you feel like every waking moment of your life matters so much.
It
And
yeah.
so the pastor kind of calms him down, and he gives him this references this passage from the Bible. I'm going to paraphrase. I've never read the Bible myself, but something about um, a moment where God put it simply, where He loves you, you are special, and He's proud of you.
Mm,
And as long as you can hold that, like that's all that matters. So He says, as long as your son knows that, that's all that matters.
wow.
So he goes home, picks up the little, and I had like my daughter's 10 months old.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's awesome.
there's yeah, there's so he picks up little Clark, his little baby, and Daniel Warren Johnson's artwork is really good, and the way he illustrates texture, it's so very lifelike. It's got like a lot of feel to it. So the and probably that I had the reference, the way he illustrated the wrinkling in the baby's onesie killed me immediately.
Wow.
Like like it was a very small detail. Like I know, and he picks up the kid and like he illustrates the hands on the baby's back, in the folds of the onesie, and I'm like, I can feel it. And then the way he illustrates how detailed, how he nestles in his nose into little Clark's, the crook of his neck, and he says, "I love you. You're special."
Oh,
And then it's a repetition of like a quick montage basically of him growing up. He's helping him fix the tractor. I'm proud of you. He's going to school. You're special. And then it's just repeating these phrases until it cuts to older Clark. He's Superman, and Ma and Pa Kent's gravestones are in front of him.
oh dear.
And he opens the shirt, right? He's got the Superman simply flies off. Now he goes, he's hovering above the homeless. You're special. He's at a
Oh my
hospital. I
gosh.
love you. He's doing this. I'm proud of you. And then he flies out into space, and he looks at the planet Earth. He goes, I'm so proud of you. And that's it. That's the
That's
whole thing. And I
insane.
2 pages in, I started crying.
Right.
I was
Like
like, it
just you
was,
telling me about it, I'm getting the feels in my chest, man.
it's like, it's just like, so
Gosh.
I'm like, are you serious? Like I'm reading a comic book, but it just connects to the father side so clearly, and the son side, like so well.
Wow.
And it's not pandering, and it's not overdone. It's just very clearly, simply stated. And, so I don't even know why I went on that, but that was
Well, no, it hit me because the funny thing is you have this almost. but we won't, I don't know, you'd say immortal, but all powerful being who's basically, the peak of heroism. Okay. And you have your regular everyday guy, your farmer, your
Mm,
dad. But the thing that amazes me about a story like that is, like, as a dad, you're reading it and you realize you don't have to have a super son to be that to another human.
yeah,
Like, and in its own way, you're kind of like everybody, if you have a relationship with your dad, everybody who has a relationship with their dad, that's your Superman, I hope so. I would hope so. But like, I, that's where that hits me, because like I have a good relationship with my dad, and I hope
mm,
that I'm a superhero to my son. So the thing that's amazing about something like that kind of writing, is like, you don't have to be a Superman for that to resonate with you.
right. Yeah, and that's when I think writing that character works so well, or any character that's similar, is when the super part takes a back seat.
Yes.
Like, we're just trying to deliver good story
Yes.
that touches the heart and soul. We just use superheroes as the vehicle. So, like, you read Tom King's Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow,
Yeah.
that delivers a great revenge tale. And I was talking to Tom King at the convention,
Of course you were.
and he's like, yeah, just it rips off True Grit. It's like a straight rip off. And I'm
Wow.
like, yeah. I was like,
Wow.
yeah, but I mean, what storytelling doesn't rip off something else?
Sure.
But it's a great. So it's a, we know. I don't know if you're aware, or aware of True Grit.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
classic western.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. John
So it's
Wayne.
a classic revenge story. Um, and then now we just put Supergirl in John Wayne's place,
That's cool.
and
I
and we
didn't know.
still,
That's awesome.
yeah, and we still tell this great revenge story, and then but it happens to have Supergirl kind of in tow, so she gets to do all these fantastic super things, but they don't really touch the main plot. They're just there as a vehicle to, like, create, these lush illustrations. I can't remember the name of the illustrator, but I've seen her work more lately. It's really, really good. Really incredible color work. So these incredible illustrations, these fantastical moments of super powered comic book goodness,
Yeah.
and that's happening, like, in the background, or over top the solid framework of the good revenge story you have going on. Um, so yeah, I mean, so to your point, it's like it has to touch the human part, and then and we like to see the fun superhero comic book pulpy stuff around it.
Yeah.
I remember reading, as a comparison, I was reading, like, I think it was like the Last War of New Krypton, or like the early 2000s, when New Krypton came up, like they got it out of the bottle
Mm-hmm.
for Kandor City,
Mm-hmm.
and it just, I was like reading through it, and I wanted to read just a through and through sci-fi story about Superman. That's what I was looking for, and by the end of it, I'm like, man, that kind of sucked. That was just like, I've seen that a million
Yeah.
times. It was the same Brainiac story, the same. I mean, I would think I was just playing the Injustice video game around that time.
Right.
Same story happens in that. Same story in the comic, and then there's a bunch of other comics with the same thing. And like, then there was like an animated movie with the same thing, and like, all right, that's a fun thing. That's a fun idea. I get it, but it's just like, oh God, I can't. Like, I'm just. It's like you're, excuse me, um, you know, pushing through molasses just to get the end of it. Just
Yeah.
like, I know what's gonna happen.
The horse is dead.
They're
Let's
gonna,
stop stomping on it. Right.
yeah, right.
Right.
So it's refreshing to see people try to write a good story with that happens to have a superhero in the background, or as a part of it. I think that's the way to go. I think good writers do that. Garth Ennis does that really well
There.
with, like, his
Yes. Yes.
Punisher run. Like, that's all his Punisher run was terrible people doing interesting terrible things, and they're all going to die at the end when Frank Castle makes it, and like, that's what you want to see. Um, so yeah, it's a good example. And to your point, it resonates completely with like the human aspect is important.
Yeah, and
Uh,
you had mentioned earlier about the connection with Bruce. There's something now. The Alfred Bruce moments have always been good. I mean, there's something about Alfred not only as a father figure and as a butler, but just as a character that has always been really interesting to me, and that dynamic that him and Bruce have, that kind of like, okay, son, I need you to straighten up a little bit, but no, I don't want to. That rebellion kind of thing that's always going on there.
mhm.
Um, that hits me harder now, those moments, because I cherish every moment that I have, like, with my kids. And of course, if you're a dad, like, that's the most important thing in life, maybe next to being like a husband, or whatever it is that's important to you. There's something about those moments now with Alfred and Bruce that they just hit a little bit harder. And I've, like you said, to your point earlier, stuff just makes me cry a lot easier now. And it's like,
Yeah.
especially now, everything that's happened with Alfred and like the primary storylines, every time you get like a little snippet, it's just like, oh, I'm done.
Yeah, and the fact that, I mean, spoilers, but he's dead.
Right, right,
So, so,
right. I don't know if there's a
so
statute of
like,
limitation on 4 years or not, but yes.
right. So well, then they keep bringing him back and like teasing, like, is
Yes.
he though?
Yeah,
Is he
right.
gonna? And I love that they haven't brought him back yet.
I
That was my
know.
favorite.
Thank you.
They could have done that in the next issue,
Thank
and
you.
like, nope, he's still
Yeah,
dead.
would they keep
Like,
Miss Marvel
cool.
dead for what, 3 weeks?
Yeah, something like crazy like that. Like they're always, killing characters, bringing them back, but you kill. First of all, he's. I mean, Bruce Wayne's human, but Alfred's not. He doesn't put on a cape. He doesn't put on a cowl, whatever. So he has that going, like, as a way. So okay, we can keep him dead longer.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
still think, like, we've seen him come. I don't know if you're caught up on Chip Zdarsky's run, but
Yes, I am. I am. Yes.
so we've seen other versions of him come back, and it was a great. What a great way to bring the character back
Oh,
and have him do stuff without retconning the whole fact that he died. And then we've seen, in the Lazarus, not the Lazarus, Batman versus
oh
Robin,
God, that scene. Ugh.
that
What
when
was it?
he's like,
Issue 5.
what was it? He's like, Alfred hates Earl Grey tea or something. Like, and that's how he figured it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, like, I was actually wondering the whole time, like, he can't just be alive this easily. But I wouldn't put it past comic book industry and writers to do that either.
Right. Yeah.
So I really didn't know which way it was going to go.
Yeah. Same. Funny you'd mentioned that one. I think it was what, issue 4 or 5, when he realizes it was Neza and everything, and the moment whenever Alfred kind of comes to out of that whatever state he was in just for a minute before he fades away. And he says your parents send their love. Of course, anytime Alfred says something about his parents, I just kind of melt. But like, I told my wife, and this is just a like fun fact, I told my wife about that part, and she refuses to read Batman versus Robin now because of that. Like, she doesn't do well with sad things, especially with characters that she loves. And I'm like, no, you got to read it. It's a stellar story, and it leads into Lazarus Planet. Unfortunately, because that event was awful. But
It sucked, man,
oh
didn't it?
God, look, if they could have just done the two primary, the Alpha and the Omega, and if I hadn't have spent $90 over the course of like 8 months trying to catch up to it because I wanted to binge read it, boy, I really had buyer's remorse from that, and because of that, I actually am not. I'm going to read Night Terrors digitally because of how disappointed I was in Lazarus Planet. If that's a
Yeah, I
thing.
was when I saw Night Terrors announced, and then they showed the checklist. I'm like,
It's
my
oh
head
God,
hurts.
it's too big. Oh my
Like,
gosh, it was going to be like $200 for me to get the whole thing, bro. And that's just A covers, like
I know. I was like, all right, I'll read the main
yeah,
story, and I read a lot of things I read digitally now. So I'm like, I'll read the main story. I'll pick up. I picked up like Night Terrors number
yeah,
one. They came out with really cool like blacklight style
yeah.
covers.
Those are cool. Yeah,
Like, so I like those. And then I'll read like a couple of the one shots with characters I like, and I so far I've been pretty pleased.
yeah. Okay,
I
well,
don't know if you feel that same way.
good. I'm glad to hear that. I did read the first like 4 that dropped. I've got to catch up on the other ones digitally. When it comes to an event, I don't mean to like just stand on a soapbox and gripe, so please don't take it as such. But like, as a consumer, if you're investing your time and your energy and especially your finances that you work for into an event, you kind of expect, especially from like the big two, you expect the best of the best. Like whenever anything Ricardo Federici does is really good. And when he did the Alpha and the Omega of Lazarus Planet, I was like, okay, this is like really really good storytelling through this phenomenal art. But then, unfortunately, and again, he may be good to some, but I can't remember his name. But the artist who led the opening issue to Night Terrors was just absolutely atrocious to me. He
Yeah.
really turned me
Okay.
off, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I get why they went with
Yeah.
him.
I mean, I
I
get it.
think his
Yeah.
style fits to like a dreamlike state.
Yeah.
He's got like this, I don't know, like very, it's like moving. It's like kind of scribbly.
Hmm.
It's got a lot of movement and like it fits. To me, it made sense for the
Yeah.
story. The style fit the story. But then you look at the faces he draws,
Yeah, man.
and I'm like, no, that's a derpy face,
Yeah.
man. That's pretty goofy.
I
I
hate
don't
to
know.
say it, but other than like Dead Man, he's just, to me, he's just not good. Like I know because
Mm,
what do I know? Because I don't work there and I'm not an artist.
right.
But
Yeah, I'm not. He's better than me, but
right, I don't know. I just feel like as a consumer, if you're, especially if you're talking about $6, $7, $8 cover prices, you know,
yeah, they get expensive.
yeah, and it's like I was excited, and it's not that I'm not now, but I went from fully planning on getting every A cover, and like I was gonna binge
Hmm.
read the whole thing, and then something happened, something kind of shifted after Lazarus Planet, and I read the one they gave away on Free Comic Book Day, and I remember
Mm.
saying out loud as I'm reading it, surely this isn't the guy, like surely this isn't their go to, and then I read Night Terrors #1 digitally, and I was like, shit, it's him. He's
Yeah.
not good. Especially after seeing people like Ricardo Federici, or you read writers like Philip Kennedy Johnson who are just really on top of their stuff right now.
um, I will give this artist. I don't even know his name.
I can't remember
I
his
will
name
give him
either. I
credit.
feel bad.
And I think this is what I mean by why they chose his style. He can draw ghosts and ghouls really well.
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
think that's where his strength is because he's got that like warped
Yeah,
form to a lot of things. But if you need like a good framework for like a face, which is really what I noticed the
yeah.
most was when he drew faces. I'm like, ooh,
Yeah, because that's normally what you're going to notice, and it's like you're looking for your characters. That you're looking for Batman's strong jawline, or that little
mm.
Jerry curl that Superman sometimes has, or that beauty that Diana. But it weren't there for me.
Yeah. But I mean, all in all, I've been enjoying Night Terrors.
Good. I,
I read the joke like I read a bunch of the one shots. I read First Blood,
yeah, yeah. That's the
which
one I
I
read.
found.
Yeah.
So I found out that's not Night Terrors #1.
Oh, okay. What is it?
And I was like, but that was totally Night Terrors #1, unless that was kind of like a prelude to Night Terrors #1,
Okay,
because 1 and 2 are out now,
I see.
and I didn't even. I was like, oh, okay, I got to read
It
this
right.
again. Okay, so excuse me. So and then I read like the Joker one shot, which is really entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
I heard people hated it,
Yeah, no, I
and
actually enjoyed it though. I thought it was pretty fun.
yeah, no, I this is okay, exactly. So I'm gonna get on um the whole okay. I can see it because an older shop owner told me he's like, oh, my friend read that. He said that was the worst one, and I can see this old guy say, "Not my Joker." You know what I
Ah,
mean? Like he read it, and he's like, "He's not being taken seriously," and I'm like, okay. I mean, I didn't talk to this guy,
sure.
but you hear these
Yeah,
things.
not my president. Kind of.
In Batman, no, in Blue Beetle, the trailer, people are got up in arms because they put the line "Batman's a fascist" in it, and it's like, yeah, yeah, he's a he is.
It's like when people try to
Like,
say he's not a psychopath. I'm like, yeah, but
right.
he kind of
It's
is
like, okay, I
though,
understand we're suspending disbelief.
right?
We have fun with this. But he's a fictional character. If you want to look at it like practically, he's out of his mind.
Yeah, right.
And that's the joke, and like we can all make the joke,
Well, and
but like apparently you can't make that joke to some people, and that just irks me a little bit.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so about the Joker issue, like it's funny, it's really
Hmm.
funny, and I had so much fun with it, but I can see people like, well, that's not Brian Azzarello's Joker, so it's not my
Oh,
Joker.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, but I mean it's hilarious when Batman slips on the building and
He
dies
just
immediately, and you're
slides
like,
off of the
really?
building. Yeah.
And then like he just has to live his life in a corporate job working for Wayne
Well,
Enterprises, and like it's so
we can
entertaining,
also
and it
appreciate the
works.
fact that they took him to the diner with them.
Yeah,
Like his
yeah,
body was just there.
just hanging out. Like, what do we do?
Yeah.
And that's funny because it's like, well, what would Joker's nightmare look
Yeah.
like? It would probably look a little bit like this. He loses his entire purpose to live, and he has to just get a job.
Yep. Yep.
And I loved it. And it just like, I mean, I'll draw the line at Joker getting pregnant, but I
Sure.
thought that was a good one.
Well, and it's funny too because I watch a few different people who do interviews on like YouTube and podcasts and stuff, and they had mentioned that apparently and of course this is in the defense, but it is an interesting insider's perspective. Uh, Apparently with the Golden Age, which I haven't read a whole lot of, but like they used to do weird pulpy things like that, and it was so some people took it as woke, which I see, but other people saw it as kind of a flashback to the odd, goofy, weird, intricate stories they used to do with Golden Age characters, like the weird what is it, the sex worms that Bruce and Clark found in the Fortress of Solitude, like weird stuff like that, you know. um,
That's an interesting point.
yeah, just so, but like, what kills me about when you had mentioned the whole like not my Joker or not, whatever. It's kind of, I used to be a real stickler for lore and canon, like anything outside of the source material. I was like, no, we can't have this conversation. Like I remember when I first started collecting and I first started reading around the time that the New 52 happened, and I didn't know anything about it, and I got so headlong into like the Dark Knight Returns universe, like Legends of the Dark Knight, and they resonated with me. And then I was like, no, New 52 doesn't exist. You can't, blah blah blah. But like as I've grown, especially when you're talking, or I should say, as I've gotten older, when you're talking about infinite universes and possibilities and stories, I don't really find much reason to hold on to a certain strain like I used to. I'm not as like a much of a butthead about it, like the whole like that's not my Joker thing. But like, whose is it though? Because it's somebody's. Because it came from somebody's imagination. I mean,
Yeah,
sure, there's
no, I
always
totally agree. Yeah,
agendas and stuff, but like, what are we doing when we just completely write everything else off because it's not the way that we have known it to be? I mean, you're talking about characters that are eternal, that are infinite, that have 1,000 different variants, you know?
yeah, yeah. And that was, to your point, that was really where I'm at now too, where it's like, hey man, this is all made
Yeah.
up. You can do whatever you
Yeah.
want.
Like if I
You know?
enjoy the story,
Like,
I enjoy it. You know what I mean?
I love it when people do stuff differently. I we're gonna I really, it's not my play. I don't know. It's I don't connect with this movement, but I'm gonna get into it a little bit. They made Superman's son bisexual.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic idea. I think it's I think it's risky, and I love that they do it, and I love it pisses people off.
Right.
I love it so much. I get so excited when, when I see comments on Instagram like they made Superman gay, and I'm like, no, they didn't. They made his son
Uh
bisexual,
huh. Right.
and you still have your Superman. Like I understand. I'm reading what is it? Adventures of John Kent,
Adventures of John Kent. Yeah. I've got like the first
something
four,
like
but I
that.
haven't read them yet. I'm going to.
It's a great story, and I'm going to talk about it
Love
as to why.
covers.
Covers, okay. I wasn't into. I grabbed the 25 ratio cover for book
Oh,
one.
cool.
Um, I got it. It had a couple spine ticks, so I got it for $10.
Nice.
And it took me a while to get it because I did not like the covers of any of
Oh,
them.
wow.
There was there was someone doing variant covers that kind of eventually got me. I don't know his name, but it was like watercolory
Cool.
looking. I don't know if you've seen them, but
Most likely, it's somewhere
yeah,
in my mind palace, as Sherlock says. I'm sure.
right. So when John Kent has scenes with his boyfriend,
Yeah.
I kind of check out. Like, not only is it written, it's written for a younger audience. It's got like that young adult fiction feel,
Okay.
and I understand it's written for a younger audience, but there's elements of the story that I love. Um, and you still get the Man of Steel. You still get the do-gooder. You still get the try to do the right thing guy,
Yeah.
and you get a more vulnerable version that connects to a wider audience than the man who is like, well, I don't want to, bulk up and stand with my hands on my hips and puff my chest out.
Yeah.
There's a panel in the first issue of that story where John Kent flies off and he opens his shirt in the classic Superman way. But his way of doing it is way more subtle, gentle. He's not shooting off, ripping his shirt open, puffing his chest out. He's kind of like almost coyly doing it.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, yeah, here you go. I'm like, that makes sense for that character. I don't know how on purpose that
Right.
was, but I felt it was like, that's
Yeah.
perfect. Like, that's great. I want this character connected to a younger audience and a wider range. Um, so I was really into that. And one quick story beat in this story, and I guess not really a spoiler. I don't know. Maybe you already know about it because it didn't happen in the story. But are you aware of John Kent like missing for 10 years?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So he goes to, I don't know, Earth 3 or
Yeah.
something, where the crime syndicate is, and he gets emotionally abused by Ultraman for 10 years in a
I think I've
volcano.
heard something about that. Yeah. Yeah. That was
It's
intense.
I love it so much. It's weird because it's like, that's real trauma for people,
Wow.
right? That's real trauma. People go through like exact, and what I liked is like, it wasn't, he wasn't beaten up by him in a big superhero fight, right? He was captured, put in a volcano, and Ultraman flies back to emotionally and verbally abuse him
Yikes.
because part of Ultraman being one of the evil versions of his dad, is that he can't, I mean, control his emotions. He can't regulate. He can't understand. He's in all aspects a bad guy, right? So, and they're exploring that in a far more human way, and like, so John Kent has to suffer emotionally and verbally abusive father who isn't his real father, and he had to find him in an alternate Earth.
Wow.
So like, that's real, and now they put it in a really, like, it's a comic book story, it's a superhero story. Part of me wants to say, like, don't make light of that
Yeah.
trauma, but part of me also says people might connect to that trauma,
Absolutely.
and they might read that and go, this character is me.
Absolutely.
And like, I loved it. And not to mention, like, just be I think good writing has to be a little bit unsettling. There's something about that I really enjoy.
Yeah. Well,
And go ahead.
sorry, I was just thinking out loud. There is a way for somebody who doesn't typically connect with I guess you would say, the symbol of Superman, who may be able to connect with that trauma, that
Hmm.
abuse, that Superman would beat his chest at. He would be able to beat that by saying that's going to bounce off. Like, there's some things that don't bounce off. There's some words that do hit your soul and convince you that you're not what your parents told you are, that you're not as good as you think you are, that you know those things happen. And so, like you were saying earlier, yeah, we can get upset that he's bisexual or whatever it is that we're upset about, like the not my Superman thing. But it's somebody's, though. Like, there are kids out
Yeah.
there who are dealing with that for real, though.
And you want to shout at some of these naysayers, like, it might not be written for you.
Yeah.
Not to mention, the people that are complaining are probably largely over 40. It's like, it's cool you still like comic books, and there are still ones written for that audience, like World's Finest, Batman.
Yeah.
Those things are still written for that audience. Even the current Superman story is phenomenal, and you still get your character. You still get your Superman. Now, open your heart a little bit
Yeah.
to some different ideas. Not to mention, it only makes the main Superman character, grow more from having to have, again, a very real occurrence in life, having a son who comes out as bisexual, who deals with trauma.
Yeah.
And now he's got to step up and say, okay, how is the big blue-eyed Boy Scout going to handle this? And of course,
Exactly.
he handles it exactly how you'd expect him to. He's the quote-unquote perfect character.
Right.
But it offers him that opportunity to grow. And like, how can you grow a character who's been around since 1938 or 1939 or whatever it was, who's been, written thousands, if not millions of
Yeah.
times. And now you get a chance to grow him, and again, in a very modern way. Like, a lot of people like to say they're pushing an agenda, but it's like, this stuff is headlines right now. This stuff is right in front of
I
us.
mean,
Of
comics have
course they're
been an
gonna.
agenda from the jump, haven't they, though?
What's that?
Comics have always been an agenda in a sense. I mean, anyway, it's always been like they were literally created for the utilization of propaganda during World War II.
That's a really
I
good
mean,
point.
what are we doing? That's why they were made.
That's an
They
excellent
were
point.
birthed out of controversy and
Yeah,
controversy and agenda. That's like,
yeah, and that's what they're gonna do. And I don't think that they're trying to. I don't know what some of these guys think they're doing. I don't think they're trying to convert anybody.
right. Well, I've never been
Um,
tempted to be trans because I read
I know,
what is
right?
the Prettiest Star character that just came out, or the We Are Legends initiative that came out that handled the trans.
Mm,
Did I connect with that character? I don't know if they identify as a boy or a girl in the story. It didn't exactly say, but like, do I identify with that character? No. Do I dislike that character because they're transgender? No. I didn't like the character
yeah,
because the writing wasn't good, right? Like
right,
the writing
right.
sucked. Art
I did,
wasn't that
yeah. I didn't love Spirit World. I can, but I read it, and it's like, you know what? I can think of some 13-year-olds
great. Yeah,
that do, and like,
especially fans of
awesome. Not for
manga.
me. You're right. It's not written for me, and that's cool, man. I don't like. I still wanted to support it.
Yeah,
Um, I really liked City Boy.
City
I thought
Boy
that
is
was pretty
cool.
cool.
I like that idea. Being able to connect with an actual city is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love. It was creative. Like, they came up with a new superpower. Like, that's not easy.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't like that the city literally had a consciousness that they could see,
Okay. Yeah.
but I was like, you didn't have to explain how his powers came to be. You can just say he has these
Right.
powers.
Right.
But no, ultimately, I think City Boy's pretty cool. And but this all leads into one of your favorite characters, which I wanted to talk about,
Okay.
Hawkgirl.
Oh, she's so great. So great.
I'm curious because I know very little about Hawkgirl. I know Shiera from the show,
Sure. Yeah.
and that's it. So right now
That's
she's
one of
Kendra.
everybody's favorites.
Right. So when and why did you really get into this character?
So she initially, of course, like you had just mentioned, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. I was a little older than I want to say. I was around 7 or 8 watching the animated series, and then I was actually more preteen slash just coming into being a teenager with Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. And my introduction to her was more about her relationship with John, how that all culminated because growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, I didn't see a lot of representation between interrelation oh my gosh, interracial couples, especially in cartoons. That was profound for me. I remember even 13, 14 years old, I was like, oh my gosh, she's not only is she white, but she's a friggin' alien and he's a marine, like an architect. This is really, really cool. But like her bravado, her fierceness, and her intensity,
She's a tough
I,
chick.
I think she is the reason that I ended up marrying my wife. Okay, I'm just saying because like she is pretty much her. Okay, but like so those seeds were planted. But then the older I got, the more I would read like some some older Justice League stories when she was in there. She always captured my attention above everybody else. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure it's just the way that she has been written or drawn, but she's always come across as a very strong, like she didn't need anybody to be strong. She didn't need Carter Hall, even though I like Carter Hall. She didn't need Carter Hall to be strong. Yes, they were always destined to be together, and reincarnation. That was another thing that captivated me, was the Egyptian mythology they threw in there, because I've
Yeah, they
always
had a very creative story. I always like that.
very, very intricate story. I've always been enthralled with Egyptian mythology. And
Like, aren't they also destined to die too? Like, they have to meet, fall in love, and then
it is
die every
a
time.
true tragedy, and an
Yeah,
absolute
and then that
Romeo.
repeats.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like a Romeo and Juliet, but like on repeat
with Groundhog
with
Day.
Groundhog Day. Yes, that is it. You nailed it. But where she really got me was Scott Snyder's run in the 2018 Justice League, from number one on. I read all the way because I was trying to read Metal, and I'm like, dude, if I got to read Metal, I got to read like what this whole lead up is about. So in order to get to Metal, Scott Snyder started his Metal story all the way back in Justice League number one. He had a plan, of course he did, because he's Scott Snyder and he plans for like thousands of years. But like, started with number one, and before you can even read Metal, you got to work your way up to like 39, right? And it had already been out for like 2 years. I started reading it in 2020, and they she is actually, in a sense, the the center point of that entire story of Metal, and also Justice League. There's something about her, and of course they actually had her and John Jones together. You get to see like their kid down the road and everything, which was pretty cool. But so there's something about that character that's always kind of like hit me, you know, and I've just always appreciated her. Her strength, I guess, was always something that brought me back to her. I've always thought about Hawkgirl throughout the years, and she has wings and a freaking like indestructible mace. So there's that too.
Yeah, that's just cool.
It's
I was
cool.
like, I mean, I haven't read a lot of content with her, but I still get the old cartoon, just the image of her like throttling towards the enemy with the mace in her
And
hand, and like the way they
boom.
animate the weight of
Yep.
it as it swings into something, like it was just really heavy. And she was always like a warrior too, so she was always
Yeah,
fun.
she's nasty, dude.
Um,
And her scream too in the show. Her voice actor always does this really intense, like, rah! It's awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, she was always cool. Did you read number one of the new series?
I did. I did. I was going to wait till I had like 4 issues because I'm a binge reader. But when I got that message from you saying you were going to read it, I'm like, well, I got to read it now. Right.
How would you think?
I liked it. Like, it's taken a different direction. I didn't know that her and John were not together. That was a little sad for me because I like her and John Jones together. Um, the story itself, I gave it about a like 6 or 7 because it wasn't bad, but I don't know. I know they're going somewhere with it yet. Of course, every first issue is always going to be. I feel like a first issue really needs to bring you in as a reader, especially if you're like a new reader or you're introducing yourself to the character. And of course, she has a rich history, so you can't leave history out. But you also can't. I feel like it's hard to bring a character with rich history in and not leave some new readers kind of scratching their head. So I mean, it was good. Like I gave it like a solid 7 out of 10 overall, but that's because I'm familiar with the character and I like the character. They cut her hair, and that's
Mm.
I love her red hair, but it is what it is. Um, the new, I'm assuming that's a new villain they introduced, but I do like where they're going with the introduction of the villain who had the little girl basically agree to her terms to see where, because she's somehow connected to the ninth metal there. Um, And this lady is apparently looking into getting into the ninth metal realm, which I was unaware there was even a realm for that.
Yeah, that was interesting that they took this, this staple of the character, and they're like, "Hey, here's something new. Like, now it's not a metal; it's more of an energy."
Right.
So I was like, "Okay, cool. Let's explore that." Um, I went into this again, like knowing, really having not having read anything beforehand. Um, I agree with your score. I settled on a 7.2,
Okay.
and I think first of all, I think the artwork's solid.
It is, and the writer has a badass name. I can't remember their name, but like the writer has a really cool name.
I'll have to
Yeah.
look that up. Um, but I'm gonna do that while I'm talking about this. But excuse me. So I had like notes on this. The introduction of the I don't know, the background story going on, or the villain story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can tell it was written by a woman.
Hmm.
I can tell it was written probably for a female audience.
Yep.
It plays like a fairy tale.
Hmm.
It's got, she's like a very witchy character, the villain. There's a lot of animals. She's like turns into a fox at one point.
A cool looking fox at
We get,
that.
yeah, and we get a like a fairy tale opening in the narration. And I said, "Oh, that's different. I can. It's not totally for me, but I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the effort in creating that tone and like going in that direction, because that's not something you see too often, and I think it's an interesting character choice for it." And then we go into what I always there's a weird little bit I didn't think about until I read this issue, which I love it when they just are fighting something. They're just they're just like, oh, we gotta and it's like, oh, we gotta take care of robots, or we gotta take care of ninjas, like something
Yeah.
boring. It's like, no, here's these little flame balls of gas inside kettle pots that that want to take over the world. Like that little detail where they created like a little creative, and again, a very heavily fairy tale influenced
Yeah.
little creation for them to handle in the first couple pages. And I said, oh, that's so much fun. And it was, excuse me, a great opportunity for the artist to bring vibrant color and and whatnot into play there. And it was,
Absolutely.
so the opening scene obviously is about what they're talking about. Kendra's tough exterior. No one has to help her. She can do it all her own. That's the conversation. But they have to fight this colorful, little funny invading force that you also have fun with. And then the way they're defeated is also very entertaining. Where the Galaxy, who I'm
Galaxy.
not familiar with,
That's her name.
and I have, yeah, and I have to say, not a fan of her design.
Right.
Um, she looks like a tube of Crest toothpaste.
Yeah.
But she comes over and she's like, "Oh, I can manipulate energy, so I what was she say? Diffuse their flame and their gas, whatever." They explained it, and she's like, "Oh, that's a creative way of defeating the enemy that really has maybe they come back later, but so far seems so insignificant, but we still took the time to create the detail."
Yeah.
And so I appreciated that. the and like you said, yeah, she has short hair now. I dig the short
I
hair.
feel like
She
that
is a
meant something. Like that wasn't just for no reason, you know?
well, yeah. Well, I think she's going to have a girlfriend at some point. I think that's where they're going to take this character. Totally cool. I have to, and I hate that I have to say it out loud.
Right. Right.
Like, nah, man, I'm cool with that. Like,
Yeah.
but that's a
I
character like
promise I don't hate gay
that. I would,
people.
but like, I just hear so often it's an agenda. It's an agenda. They're pushing the agenda. That when they do make a choice like that, I just feel like, is this like, are they pandering to these readers?
Right.
Which is a whole other thing. I don't know if you read any of DC Pride, but a lot of the stories work. A lot of the stories are
One
pandering.
of them was even written by
And
Kevin Conroy, right?
was it? I
I
didn't see
think
that, but that
so.
might make sense. That's probably very from the heart too.
Oh yeah.
But I just like Kevin Conroy a
Oh
lot.
yeah.
But he's also, I mean, he's gay,
Oh,
right? So
yes, yes.
I don't think I said a gay. I didn't mean to. He's gay
He's one
or
of the
was.
gay.
He's one of the gays. But, so it probably came from the heart from him. But there was a couple, and I'll brush over this real quick, that legitimately made me upset. And like I don't normally get annoyed at writing choices. It's like do whatever you want.
Right.
But so I really like Ghostmaker. I think he's a fun
He's cool.
character. He's cool. Yeah, he's a really cool like the 13-year-old in me. He's like, yeah, it's fucking awesome,
Yeah,
man.
right.
He carries katanas and he kills people, and then he's trying not
And he
to because he
talks
wants
shit
to
to
redeem
Batman. Who
himself.
does that?
And he stands up to bit like he's a cool character. And then they had him. Uh, he fucks Catman.
Oh, see, I didn't know about that,
It's just like it's like a quick little story, and then it ends with them in bed together,
bro.
and it's like what a joke. Like if there was any character that you had to keep sexual preference out of his
Yeah,
story, it's Ghostmaker.
yeah,
It just doesn't make sense. You don't have to say it, but like assume he's asexual.
yeah,
And then even if they had him have sex with Hawkgirl, like I still would have been insulted as a consumer and as a reader, as someone who wants to read something that someone wanted to write. It's like I'm all for humor too, but I think that's just an insulting joke to both comic book fans and the LGBTQ plus
right.
community, because all they did was say, "Hey, look, here's two guys fucking. That's what you want, right?"
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
This
like
is what you wanted to
with
see. So,
way more than that. Like these are people,
yeah,
and can we please remember that?
right.
And so it's just like it's just such a joke. Whether he was having sex with a man or then the fact that they made a cat man too, like it's just
Ah, yeah,
another nail in the coffin
yep.
for that. What a joke character! It's the whole thing's insulting and it's just pandering to them. That's how I took it
Well,
anyway.
you would
Now
think
maybe
he would have chosen at least somebody cooler, right?
yeah, like come on, like, he can get someone cooler than Catman. But just like okay, am I supposed to take this as canon now?
Right.
I like reading Batman Incorporated. I think it's a ton of fun. Like it's not amazing, but it's a fun read. It's action packed, you know.
Yeah,
It's got fun moments. Do I have to assume he's gay now? I don't know. And if I do, I don't want to. I don't. Not that he has to be either way, but it's just so far from what his character should be
yeah,
doing than worrying about that. And like they just and it again back to like a lot of those stories were like here's a story good or bad, whatever. That one particularly was bad, and I mean maybe some readers read it and they laughed, and maybe that's what they're supposed to do, and that's fine. But I just think if you're writing, if you've got this big, you know, DC Pride collection, and it's supposed to bring attention and awareness and identity, and you want these people to feel seen, that's not the way to do it.
yeah.
And I like that's my opinion, and it's not for me because I shouldn't have an opinion. but but that's how I felt about that. But I don't even know what started that. Why did I say
I know
Ghostmaker?
we were talking
We
about
were talking.
Galaxy, I think.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah. So they're. Oh, someone's trying to break my door down. Um, yeah. So they're probably gonna make Hawkgirl a lesbian or bisexual or whatever, which is fine, and I want to be okay with that without thinking that like they're trying to do it everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, right, right. And that's fair.
I don't
That's fair.
and like but the reason I feel that way sometimes is because I just hear people mention it all the
Yeah,
time, and that gets into me through osmosis, and I don't want it to,
yeah,
and I want to defend the choices because again, John Kent being bisexual is an excellent choice. They made Tim Drake bisexual. I wasn't into his series when I first saw it. It really came down to the artwork; it just wasn't for me.
yeah.
But I looked recently. He has a Night Terror tie-in,
Cool.
and like I kind of flipped through a couple of his issues because the artist changed. The guy's a badass character. They
He
took
is.
Robin. He still looks like Robin, but he's like I don't know Tom Cruise, like in Mission Impossible. Like he's just a real badass who happens to be bisexual.
Right.
That's totally cool, and like it doesn't. Um, so I enjoyed that they still kept it like, hey, he's a a hard kicking, action packed comic book
Yeah,
character, and we're not just gonna lay on this quote unquote agenda
right.
to the readers. Um, and then but they made him bisexual, and then like other characters come out. In Pride they made Connor Hawke, Green Arrow's son, pansexual,
Yeah.
which in any other story, who cares? But it was in Pride, and they wanted to address that section of the community. Totally cool. There wasn't anything wrong with it to me, as far as writing goes. Um, so they like, and I'm like seeing it a lot, right? I'm seeing it a lot. Okay, Kendra has that lunch with the girl she's like, oh, I'm gay now, and can I, like, are you seeing anybody? Are you available? And she's like, oh, I'm not ready for a relationship right now. And I'm like, yeah, okay, this is the direction we're
Uh
going
huh.
in. And so yeah, so I don't know. I see that and I go, I kind of want to roll my eyes because I'm like, what are they? I just feel like it should be taken more seriously,
Yeah.
and sometimes it is, sometimes it's
If
not.
it happens, it happens. Like I won't be upset about it, but personally, on a personal level, it has to do with their romance that built between her and John worked very well in Justice League and in Scott Snyder's run. So it's like it's one of those things where people hear me say that and they're just like, "Oh, you just don't want her to be gay." It's like, "No, it's not that. It's she is a really good, I don't know, her character builds really well in
Mhm.
companionship when she's partnered with somebody who is like John Jones is like that counter strength to her. Not that there can't be a
Mhm.
woman who isn't. That's not what I'm saying. But like, or John Stewart when she was with him in Justice League Unlimited, there was or something about those dynamics is what captures me the most with her. So like
And you want to,
if,
yeah,
if
okay, you want to see that relationship
I
again. You want to think
do,
of it.
I
Sounds like,
love them together. you
yeah.
know,
Well, and it's yeah, you have fond memories of this that writing arc,
yeah. And I know
and of
things
course
got to move
Scott,
on. I know things have to evolve.
yeah,
I get it.
and Scott Snyder probably wrote a good story.
Yeah,
Um, so you just don't want to see. Well, I'll give you an example. In Batman, when he went to the other universe, they did the extra story with Robin, which was like 10 times better than the main story most of the
yeah,
time.
yeah. I wasn't a huge fan of the Batman of Gotham. Well, the story was okay, but the
Yeah,
artwork I wasn't a huge, especially going from
that's
that one dude. Was it Jorge Jimenez? I think
yeah, I think
when he
so.
went from
Jimenez.
him to the other guy, I was like, ugh.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but I can tear apart that entire arc. It's just like it's not terrible, but there's a lot of weird bits in
Yeah,
it, and I love picking that
yeah,
apart. But the extra story, there's a scene where Tim Drake is hanging out with his
yep,
boyfriend, and his boyfriend's playing a video game, and he's like, "You want to see me get to level 100?" And I'm like, "That's not how anyone talks when they play a video game. That doesn't exist." Like, and it was like, this is written by a 65-year-old. He has no idea what he's talking
right.
about. And so, but like, it was kind of stupid. It was like a stupid
Yeah,
line. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and again, and you know, so I wouldn't want to see that level of writing come into Kendra's relationships, especially after you're so connected to her relationships with other
yeah,
characters. So, man or woman, you want to see a strong relationship with this character again because that's been, especially like in the Hawkman Hawkgirl
yeah.
mythos,
Which
that's
Carter
one
Hall's
of the
kind of
main
an
focus
ass.
points.
I would rather see her with anybody but him. He's a dick.
It would see that's I don't remember really anything about that, but I counterpoint. I would like to see her back in that Groundhog Day loop, but he is a dick, and she's got to deal with it every time.
Right,
And
right.
it's like, oh god, I have to meet him again.
Why do I
It's
keep
like,
falling in love with this?
oh god, can we just like? I mean, I think that would be entertaining.
Yeah,
She ends up killing him instead, and it's like she breaks the loop. But
right.
um, I don't know. It reminds me of Love Everlasting. I don't know if you've read that yet, but I recommend it. Yeah. So okay. So we did. She's definitely going to be lesbian.
Absolutely.
Hopefully that relationship is strong because that's what the character thrives
Yeah, the
on.
chick that she was talking to
And
seemed kind of cool.
yeah, there was a there are two moments in this book that made me question, and one of them was like they're literally one panel, but one of them was um oh, she mentions like, oh, you used to be so passionate about what you believed in, or something to that
And then
effect,
the F the
and
cops
it
thing.
cuts fuck the
Right.
cops or fuck you cops, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking at it and I'm like, am I supposed to cheer? Am I supposed to um or am I supposed to see this as like, oh, is that a mistake she made, or am I supposed to feel nothing at all and it's just a mention of her younger years?
Well, you got me actually because like you had mentioned not reading as much Hawkgirl in the past, even though I'm a little versed in Hawkgirl, um, especially with like the later 2018 and uprun of her Justice League stuff. I don't remember ever seeing that like anything like that happen. So I, being familiar with her, was just as confused as anyone else because
Yeah.
it. I guess for me, it just seems super fucking random. It
Yeah.
was just a
Yeah,
random
it
ass
seemed
panel. I had to do a double take because I didn't know if it was her or not.
it seemed like propaganda.
It was yeah, it was like
It
just kind of
seemed
like okay, fuck the cops, I guess. I mean,
like, are we on this, is DC Comics strongly on this side of the fence?
right, or is it just that writer? But like, also to me, look, I've watched this character grow from the animated series and in the comics and stuff. Thanagarian's, I mean, she's human because she lives on Earth like John and like Clark and a lot of others, but not to the point where she gets invested in like those types of politics. Like Shira Hall has never come off to me anyway as somebody who's going to go join a riot or she's got Thanagarian human type stuff to figure out. She's got a world to save. She's got a fucking multiverse. Like read Metal, bro. Like she's got a multiverse to save. And so I'm not saying she wouldn't, but I don't know. It just seemed really out of character and out of left field if that was supposed to be her.
So is she still Shaira, or is she Kendra, or is that the same person?
Yes, she is both actually. Shira and Kendra, like the whole reincarnation thing, is
Okay.
Shira, the Egyptian Hall name, which is like also Thanagarian, because like their whole thing is like, huh? No, it's not a video; it's a podcast. My wife just walked in.
Okay.
So like
Yeah, I'm not ready to be on camera yet. She's good.
right? Uh, no, I don't know where it's at. I'm sorry. Um, but so like she said hi. So the whole hall thing being Thanagarian, they came to the world, 2000 plus years ago, and the Egyptians mistake them for gods, and then they ended up worshiping them, blah blah blah. So like, yes, Shira Hall is Kendra Saunders. Kendra Saunders is just like her name that she kind of like adopted whenever she, basically is like, okay,
Okay.
this is I'm just gonna stay here. Um, but I don't know. It just that one panel is what kind of kept it from being an 8.
Yeah, there was one other moment. That was my biggest
It was
gripe.
just like a what the
Was
fuck,
like, what am I supposed to feel right now?
right?
And then, like, okay, is it gonna come back? Like, I was literally left lingering in
I
my
don't
mind
feel
because, like,
like it will. I honestly don't. I feel
I
like
hope
it was
not.
just like this weird little nod.
Yeah, if we can pass it off as like she was, if you can pass it off as saying she was in college and that's what young people do, I'm totally cool with
Yeah,
that. But it's not explained, so I have to land on that myself. And I don't mean to be like, man, I don't really take strong sides in either. If we're talking about that particular time of like Black Lives Matter, and now the LGBTQ plus thing, like people have really strong stances, and I don't take those strong stances. I know that people are
yeah.
people, and some people suck, some people
I know
don't.
that there are good cops and that there are bad. Like my
Right.
brother-in-law, he's a good cop, and then there are cops who are not good cops.
Yeah,
You
and you
know.
can go online and find the bad ones and find the good ones, and it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And like, and some people are just nuts. But anyway, that's not getting into political issues. Um, I would, I did hope that what the writer was trying to do was not to say we are taking this stand,
Yeah,
because I really don't. God, I kind of hate that. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
yeah. Well, that's kind of the
Like,
reason I read so much is because the world is weird right now. There's enough going on for me in reality. So I prefer to kind of distance myself. often my wife, she'll say, why do you read so much? I'm like, because it's, for one, it's part of who I am, but like, I just don't like the world right now. I just don't like people very much right now, I can get enough of that on TikTok. I can get enough of that on any social media platform to see stuff like that. So, and again, I know that that's hypocritical of me because, like I said, comics have always been propaganda in a way. Like, look at Alan Moore. But like,
Yeah.
but to the other end, I want to read Hawkgirl because I love Hawkgirl.
Yeah, I just want to have
I just
fun. I
want to
don't
have
want
fun with the
to.
character.
I don't want to feel like she has a strong stance in a situation that's going to alter how I
Yeah,
feel about a fictional character.
yeah. Especially because whoever the writer is, I can't remember her. I think it's a lady. Her super cool name. The way she introduced, because I'm a huge fan of fantasy and lore and folklore,
Hmm.
the way that she poetically introduced the story as, so the fox did this and there was a bird and then this, like, that was really pretty to me. That opening
Yeah, so that
dialogue,
connects with
yeah,
you.
it really resonated with me because I was like getting kind of like Philip Kennedy Johnson vibes because he's like a huge Lord
Hmm.
of the Rings type writer. I was getting those vibes and I'm like, oh man, we're going into this thing with kind of fantasy. And then few pages and it's like, oh, well, that's weird. Like, okay, sure, you did that in college, but where are we at, right? Like, I don't know.
Jadzia Axelrod. That is a
I know,
badass name.
freaking cool name, right? Right?
That's
Freaking
pretty cool.
Axelrod, like what? I don't know what
So I don't.
nationality that is, but that's cool.
Right. Now I don't usually talk about this, but I'm gonna say something. She is a muscle mommy and a half in this comic. She is
For real.
jacked.
For real.
She's and like she should be,
Right?
and the artwork's really good, and it lends to the weight of her character a lot.
Yeah, man.
Um, totally into it.
Yep.
Like, it's like one of my favorite things about the reading this was how she's illustrated and how, I mean, just big she is. She's built, and they illustrate the musculature really well, especially in her
Oh
core,
man, yeah.
like when she's swinging the mace. So that I thought was really cool. But I'm looking at this bit in the beginning. These little flame kettle
Yeah.
pots
They're
um,
adorable.
knock out her wings, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And she's falling, and she's like, no one's helping me because they think I can do it myself. I'm like, first of all, that would never happen. Like, Superman's over there, he'd go and catch you in 2 seconds and then
Literally.
like help, like that would they would never make that choice. But I see what they're trying to say. She's got the tough exterior, she did this to herself.
Yep, yep, yep.
So then she goes, let this be the end then. And I'm like, you fly, for that's your power, and you're saying that falling is gonna kill you?
Yeah.
I just didn't buy that at all.
Yeah, no, that's not Shaira at all. It's really not.
Like, I see what they're going for in that moment, but I just didn't buy it. And I think she's even illustrated with tears coming out of her eyes.
That's right. That's right. Yep, I remember that.
Just a bizarre, like, no. I mean, there are moments that I think that they can write for this
Yeah,
character where you can do that. But this isn't one of them. This is just like a one-off thing
yeah,
Obviously, she's not gonna. It's like I was watching Superman and Lois, that CW show.
yeah, yeah.
I watched that with my wife,
Same.
and in season 3, um, I don't know. Do you care if I tell you what
Oh
happens?
no, we're caught up. You're good,
Okay.
buddy.
Oh, cool. All right. So in season 3, she gets cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she this little makes me laugh, and I saw it coming. I'm like, they're not going to do this. So she's trying to talk someone off a ledge, and to do that, she makes it about
Yeah.
herself. And she's like, I have cancer. Can you imagine going to talk someone off a ledge? You're like, hey, like, oh God, I have stage 4 lung cancer. You can't do this.
Person's gonna
It's
be like, "What
so
the fuck?"
dumb. But that's like, it was so overly
Yeah,
dramatic that, like, okay, they did the whole thing at the end of that episode with not Jonathan Kent and Jordan. And they she tells her family what's going on, and my wife brought this up. It's not just breast cancer, which kills people plenty. It's a super rare, super aggressive form of breast
Yeah.
cancer. And then she's telling him, and the sound dips down, the music swells, it's slow motion, they're all hugging, and I'm like, okay, I get the drama, but we all know she's gonna be okay.
Yep. She's Lois.
Like,
Also,
she's a
she's a
main
comic book
character.
character too. So
You're right, she's a main character. Her husband's Superman. You don't think he's got some Kryptonian
thank
technology
you.
that can cure her? Like, I don't know what happens yet, but it's like, I feel like if that was in a comic, he'd be like, "No, I just lasered the cancer out of you. You're
Yeah. No
good."
shit. Right. Right.
like, like, I don't buy it for a
We took care
second.
of this 30
And so
seconds
then,
ago.
right, they push it and push it, and just like this moment, I don't buy for a second that falling is gonna kill her.
Mm-mm.
But then they did the tears in her eyes. I'm like,
Well,
really?
and
Anyway,
part of me
that's
feels
a
like
gripe I have.
the couple of things we've discussed and how you as a almost newer reader, me as a former, well, not fully, but like former Hawkgirl reader, like, so you have two ends of the spectrum. You have people who are new to it. You have people who've been reading for a while. This story, I'm sure. Um, I feel like we both can kind of agree when I say it seems like, from what little bit we both know, that the writer, this is gonna sound kind of bold for me to say this, but just from what I've gathered, it seems like the writer doesn't know the character that well, because like, not only would it not kill her, most likely, not only would Superman fucking not let her fall, or anybody who was there for that matter, um, but Shira Hall has never, and I mean never, in any episode of any story that I am aware of, yes, she is an alien woman who has struggled with things in the past, like we all have. But she's never been the type to just throw in the mace and say, "Well, I'm gonna have to call it," like that. She doesn't fucking do that at all. She does the opposite of that literally all the time.
If you really wanted to write this, you would have had to build it up over like 10 fucking
Yeah,
issues.
don't bring it in the
And
first,
like,
bruh. Especially from her just
it,
falling because her wings got
right.
retracted. You know what
It
I
would
mean?
have to be real, like, she would have to be, just an example, like at her knees in front of Darkseid, like
Yes,
down on her luck,
something big.
facing the worst odds ever. And just, nope, she's just gonna take a spill, and that's it. She's done. She's done.
I
Oh
don't know. I'm
God.
not saying the writer doesn't, but like I'm kind of getting vibes that like the writer is try. I know she's trying new things and it's cool, but some of the things like that, for example, aren't really working. I'm gonna keep reading it because I'm curious, and plus I can't not get my wife the story. She's a reader as well, and
Yeah.
she's very excited about reading Hawkgirl's story. I feel like she is not going to like it as much as we thought she was going to, though. As a
We'll
Hawkgirl
see.
fan,
I
because I know my
I
wife,
have
and
no
I just
idea.
feel like this story is for Hawkgirl fans. This story is not really jiving like it's not hitting like it should. I feel like it should have been something more. It kind of left me wanting something else, I guess.
I feel the same way about, because as far as like you read Hawkgirl no matter what.
Yeah,
I read Green Lantern no matter
yeah,
what,
yeah,
and I feel that way with a current Green Lantern
yeah.
story.
Oh wow, really? That
Um,
sucks.
it's oh God, it's
I've
weird
got it, but I
because
haven't read it yet. I've got like the first two
just
issues.
like this, the artwork's solid.
Okay.
But we take, and you can see like they took the um part of Hawkgirl where that with the tough exterior bit where she's like, no one has to protect me, I can protect myself, and that's becomes her downfall. But that's like the way that's executed leaves you wanting.
Mm,
So Hal Jordan is like, he hides behind like a smirk and charisma,
yeah.
right? And then so he's kind of like a lovable jerk.
Yep.
But in this series so far, he's a through and through jerk. He's just a bad
Oh
person.
wow.
It's like he just won't leave. It's like stalkery. He won't leave Carol Ferris alone, and it's not charming, and it's not like it's not done subtly. He's pretty aggressive about it.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, there has to be a redemption arc. Like we have to see him see that he's being a piece of crap. Like
Yeah, really.
he's got to notice this. Like that. So I'm waiting for that. But hopefully, like we see in Hawkgirl's arc, you get what you're looking for. Um, a high point of the book, the corgi's pretty cool.
What was it?
I like the corgi. The corgi,
Oh yeah,
the dog.
yeah.
I like the dog a
The
lot.
dog's pretty cool. Yeah, the talking
He's
dog.
just a corgi and he talks. Like I don't know. I don't
I'm
know if
guessing that's
Galaxy.
Galaxy's thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. This can't be her first
Well,
appearance. Like she's been
I
in
know
things.
Galaxy had her. They you know how they do those mini comic books? They're not like full size books. They're like little. Um, DC started doing a lot of stuff for young adults and kids, right? I think, if I'm not mistaken, and don't quote me on it, I I remember seeing the advertisement several times for her Galaxy the Prettiest Star little kids thing that they do, like they've done with
Okay,
like Raven and stuff. I think that's where she made her debut because obviously something
interesting.
happened because they all mentioned whenever Batman and Kendra were having their conversation, which I really enjoyed. That conversation was a lot of fun for me as a Batman and Hawkgirl fan to see them kind of
When
connect. Um,
Yeah, when that started, that conversation
yeah,
started, I geared up to cringe, but then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm not. I was into it. I thought it was
yeah, it
good.
was good. It was good writing for Batman, and the fact that I'm not going to say she kind of pulled one over on him, but she knew some stuff that he didn't know that she knew. But he
Mm,
also, whenever he was like, I know a little bit about her, and then he basically unlocks her entire rap sheet, and she's like, Jesus, like, what do you
yeah.
know about me? And he's like, it's pretty extensive, you know. But he was talking to her about Galaxy and everything, and how apparently there was some type of event that nobody remembers. I'm guessing that that must have happened in her story,
Yeah,
you know.
and that's fair. I just she look, she's got that look, man, where I know who this is created for.
Yeah, yeah, I get it.
I'm totally cool. I don't hate like as a character. I didn't hate her at all. I didn't find her overly annoying. I actually was like interested as to how she's going to be incorporated.
Yeah,
She's got like this childlike naivety to her.
yeah,
So and then like that clashes with Kendra's "leave me alone, I can do it" attitude,
yeah, yeah.
and like don't screw up around me because I don't have time for this.
While
Um,
also saying, "Okay, I give up."
yeah, yeah,
There
right.
was kind of a few
God, it was weird.
inconsistencies.
um, but yeah, I mean, it still holds a certain standard of quality for these Dawn of DC
Yeah,
stories that I think they're all pretty good so far that I've read. I think they're all pretty good, and I'm interested to see where they go. Even though I have gripes with them, but why wouldn't I?
yeah.
Um, I've like Superman is a 10 out of 10. Every issue is perfect to me.
Absolutely. I've read up to
Um,
four of them, and I have just I've been texting people, like people that don't even
yeah,
fucking read comic books. I'm like, dude, you got
you're
to look
bringing
at
up at
this.
family parties and like you got to leave, man.
Right, right. Like Jordan, we have now exited the chat, but like that giant, what was it, Night of the Parasite? That giant ass
That
two
was cool.
splash
Yeah,
page where they're all crawling up on the building and you see the light.
yeah.
It's so pretty. It's,
And here's the
it's
thing
so pretty.
that that whole the art yeah, the artwork's phenomenal.
Yeah,
Like not like every story, and I said this to Tom King because I brought up his Superman Up in the Sky.
yeah,
I sold that book to a comic book store owner because he had it on his shelf, and I'm like, you got to read this. I sold it to a friend of mine who like we're like, this is the best Superman story I've read in such a long
yeah.
time. And I brought it up to him. He's like, oh man, that was when I was learning how to write.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense now that he says that. But I'm like, that's the point. I'm like, that's why it's so charming. It's because it's so simple,
Mm,
and that's why it
yeah.
works. Like good writing is simple.
Yeah, there's nothing in
So
that Superman story that's. I don't consider myself dense by any means, but there's nothing hard to follow. There's nothing
right,
overwhelming,
exactly,
you know?
exactly. It's just here's a simple superhero plot, and then they sprinkle in like themes that I think connect to older readers, like when he when the first issue when he learns about Supercorp,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I got this feeling. I'm like, oh, are there gonna be like, is this gonna get political? Are they gonna do business dealings? Are we gonna see bureaucratic stuff? Like this has a weird
Yeah.
feel, and then it just, I mean, my fears were squashed instantly. Um, and then he goes there, and Lex Luthor has a hologram, and he's in Kryptonian garb, and he's like, I feel like this would be more comfortable for you. And it's like, it's not, it's not in your face evil, but it is just that subtly
Yeah.
manipulative, where he pisses off
I'm
Superman.
not gonna front.
All of immediately he loses his cool,
It,
and he does exactly what he thought he would do, and I'm like, that was good fucking writing.
dude,
It was such a good character move.
Lex is on a different level in this. I'm having trouble as much as I like to think I know Lex. That's one of those characters like the minute you think you get to know him, he could end up saving the goddamn universe, or he could end up trying
Yeah,
to destroy it. And
he's easily one of my favorite
oh,
characters of all time. He's
so
grown
good,
to be,
so good. And
because he can be anything.
the fact that I was listening to a TikTok today where these dudes were like, the fact that he's racially ambiguous in fucking
Yeah,
Justice League.
give me a racially ambiguous Lex. I don't know what he is, but I like it.
Oh my gosh! But I don't know what he's up to. I really don't. I can't figure it out, man. And I love that
Yeah,
like characters like that. It's like
did I don't know which issue you. Well, it's I can look at it, because the if you said you read 4 of
I
them.
think I've read up to. I'm about to start 5. Yeah, I've read the first 4, and I've loved every
Okay,
damn one of them.
yeah, the ending of 5, dude. Oh my
Is it
god,
good?
talk about like I mentioned the other
That's the
day,
one
like
with the
comic
banshee,
books.
the silver banshee on the cover. Is that, okay,
Yeah,
yeah, I haven't read that one
and
yet.
they're and I loved like that's another thing. Jimmy Olsen and Banshee are in love. I'm like, what
Oh,
a cringy idea,
right,
and then it's super well written,
cool,
and I'm like, amazing. Um, but the end of 5, like comic books needing to have biting page turns and cliffhangers. The
awesome,
cliffhanger at the end of 5 is insane,
awesome,
and the change they make is brilliant.
cool.
It's just so
Oh,
good.
I'm
And
stoked,
it's like, what is it? Oh, Superman's so boring. He's so perfect. He has all those powers. He's the most interesting book right now.
man. His that the
Anyway,
World stuff was really good too.
I skipped War World and I wanted to get back into it.
Definitely check
Um,
that one out. It's got some amazing lore in it. Philip Kennedy Johnson is
yeah.
like a master folklore writer, dude.
Oh, okay. He wrote
Oh
that.
my
Okay.
gosh. And
Yeah, Action Comics hasn't been too bad
no,
either.
and I think he's had a
Um,
lot to do with it too. And Riccardo Federici took over as the artist in War World, and the dude just nails fantasy artwork.
I have one War World issue because the cover matched up with the McFarlane War World Superman figure.
Cool.
So I needed the cover because I had the
Is that the
figure.
one with like the
um,
shield and the freaking
yeah,
emblem?
he's got the
Oh
shield and the
yeah, so
yeah.
good. I need to get that figure.
Um, it's really good looking. Um, yeah. So anyway, Superman's 10 out of 10. Batman has been the failsafe arc. I'd say was perfect.
Oh man, it's
I
good.
don't think
It
I've.
was good.
It was. I mean, every beat was phenomenal, and then get into this other world. A lot to say about that.
I
Um,
did enjoy the fan service. I actually threw
the end.
issue
I do
135.
have.
I actually threw it across my bedroom when he met Frank Miller. When Frank Miller replaced the Dark Knight Returns Batman replaced his hand.
Yeah.
I physically threw my comic book across the room and I said, "Fuck yeah!"
It was so. I loved when he goes to the Adam West
Oh,
world,
dude, yeah,
whatever,
the
and like
belt,
all like so they're. I mean, talk about hard to follow. I think he put in a lot of ideas that were just weird.
yeah,
Like, okay, we're creating other Jokers in other universes, and they're getting worse.
yeah.
Like, I wasn't quite following. And if they do another Joker Armageddon, I'm not into it.
I know, right,
But the idea of a psychopathic Brian Azzarello Joker in Adam West's universe
dude?
was the most entertaining thing I could come up with.
Right?
And I'm like, I need that right now.
Yes, because there's
Like,
some things that can't be
holy
saved.
homicide,
Yeah,
Batman.
right.
Like it's
Everybody's getting fucking
oh
murdered.
yeah.
I I was a big fan. Other than the Dark Knight Returns Batman getting having the meeting with him, I also enjoyed seeing him talk to the Arkham verse Batman in his chair, kind of
Yeah,
like you could tell he was kind of beaten. He was like, "I've been through the fucking ringer."
yeah. And I like they included everything.
Yeah,
And it's like, I mean, and people say like best Batman book I've ever read. I'm like, well, it's really just fan service, but at the same time, yeah, it's super well written and it ties up really well.
and
And
thank
you get Tim Drake pulling him out of the alternate the multiverse stream
yeah,
or
that
whatever,
was
and you get their
cool.
reunion.
Well,
And I'm like, and like the suit they gave Tim was
it
awesome
was. It was a
as a
really
side
cool
thing.
looking suit, and it did its job. But I mean, fuck, it looked cool. um, but I'm very grateful. More than anything, I'm grateful that they got Jorge. How do you say his name? Jimenez or is it Jimenez?
It's got to be like
Okay,
Jimenez.
so we'll just say Jorge, right? Um,
Yeah, sure.
so when they got Jorge to come back, when I turned the page and I saw when he
Yeah.
started going back through the multiverses, I'm like, thank God they got him because the
I,
other guy couldn't have done this.
that's yeah. Oh
Thank
yeah. And
you.
that's what like a friend of mine and I were talking about. We're like, is it because he's in another world that they changed
I
artists?
guess
And it must have been. And it's like, I guess we needed it to look like
it
shit.
wasn't very
But
good. He drew
it's
his action sequences really well, but like I don't know, it just didn't hit it for
something
me.
about it.
It was
Um
almost goofy.
yeah, I can't put my finger on it. It just lacked
Yeah,
weight. Um there was a moment in that story that left me head scratching when he runs into that universe's Superman
yeah.
and then he goes, quickly, Bruce, do the thing with your eyes. And he rolls his eyes in the back of his
And the
head.
voice
And the
just scares
voice,
the
and
shit
then
out of
Superman runs away.
me.
And I'm like, should I be
Yeah,
laughing?
right,
Am I missing something?
right.
And I'm like, well, why did Superman run away? What was his character doing in this world? Like, I didn't quite
I
catch
don't
that.
know.
So
I guess he just scared the
I
fuck
was,
out of him. I was kind of
okay. My friend and I had, like, we sat on this for like two
please
days
enlighten me.
because he's like, I looked it up. Apparently, in some lore somewhere, Bruce Wayne, before his cowl had white eyes, would roll his eyes in the back of his head to scare criminals.
What?
And I'm like, I've never heard that ever.
Dude,
Like, what are you talking
as
about?
big of a Batman
So,
fan as I am, I've never heard of that before.
right, I don't think anyone has. I wondered.
That's got to be like an obscure story.
I couldn't get it. Now that moment got a big panel, got like a splash page.
Yeah.
And then the far more interesting moment where his hand gets cut off,
Dude,
you have to double check to see that actually happened. It's this
I
tiny
did.
little panel.
I actually did. I
Yeah, you have to go
flipped to
back.
the next page and I was like, well, he's missing a fucking hand. Wait a minute. I didn't like the name Ghostbreaker. I thought that was kind of a dumb name.
Yeah, well, at least we got some reference to that character. I want to see him get his own stuff.
Yeah. It's kind of messed up that the real Ghostmaker didn't like. I know he wouldn't because like they actually like each other, even though he's like a psychopath. But I'm like, damn, his real friend couldn't have even been the one to do it. You
Right.
know.
So now we get, yeah, and then that leads into the super great fan service issue, which I don't own and I should.
It's a big fat one. It's a fat one, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
And then yeah, and I'm all caught up. I think they changed. I don't know if they changed the artist again. I don't dislike it, but I think it's the most recent issue where he's trying. I enjoy him. Like, I think for the first time that I can remember, we get to see Bruce Wayne struggle. He's like, everyone's worried about me. I got to get back on my feet, but he's like, I'm fine. And then he's clearly
Yeah.
not, and he gets his butt handed to him by the Penguin's son. And I thought that, I don't know if it was on purpose, but I actually laughed out loud. But as he crashes their dinner party, right, and he's like tries to beat him up and gets his butt kicked, and the only reason he survives is because of his robot hand,
Oh, cool.
and like he has to, and he's so like he doesn't survive on his skill. he survives because he uses the robot hand to crush his hand,
See that I'm
and then
glad to hear
he's
that because I've been wondering what they're gonna do. Like now that Bruce
yeah,
officially has a robot hand, like that's a
right.
big
They don't.
deal, dude.
It's they could do a lot of neat stuff with it, and they haven't done much yet. But I hope it lasts. And then he stumbles out and he's like, "Consider this a warning." And I'm like, "What's a warning? You just lost."
You just
And
ass
like,
kicked. What?
and I think that was the whole point of that moment, to see like it was like, wow, they demonstrated this, in his lore and his mythos. He's a you can't beat
Yeah,
him, like you can't. But now he's trying to save
yeah.
face when he can't stand up anymore.
Well, I've noticed one thing
And
about Chip Zdarsky because I've read some of his Daredevil stuff and I was reading his Batman and his Daredevil kind of hand in hand. I've
mm,
noticed that Chip Zdarsky is really good and not in a disrespectful way, but almost as a rebuilding. He's really good at deconstructing characters to their core, finding out who like who the readers think they are, and then he's also I notice he's kind of letting I think the whole failsafe thing leading into the Batman of Gotham thing was obviously it's a journey of rediscovery, but it's like you you could tell when failsafe was going on, Bruce knows he's getting tired. Like he knows he's not at the end of his game, but he's not young anymore. He's been doing this for literally fucking what 90 years. He knows that. um, so Chip Zdarsky has a very very smart way of deconstructing to rebuild, and I don't think he's doing it necessarily for Damian to take over, but with everything that's going on in Wonder Woman 800, when you got that little snippet of what's to come with the new Justice League and Diana's daughter and Damian taking up the cape and cowl and everything. I think that's where we're going. I really do. It
I
may be 10 more years before we get there, but I think that's what Chip is like kind of introducing is like Bruce is like kind of like slowly retiring in a way. At least that's what it seems like to me. I don't know.
okay. I haven't finished Wonder Woman 800.
Okay.
I was reading it last night with my little
Uh-huh.
girl, who left halfway through because she was bored, so I didn't finish it. But I have to look through it now because I didn't see that Damien thing.
It's just like
And
literally 3 pages. That's why 800 was such a big spec book for a lot of people because it introduced, her daughter and she has the golden perfect and she also has a black and a white lasso, though we don't know what those are yet.
okay,
And in this apparent future, you have Damien taking up the mantle and John has fully taken up the mantle and they mentioned that she is the current leader of the
John has taken up the mantle of what?
Superman
Oh,
completely.
oh, well, yeah. I mean, I guess equally,
Yeah.
if that makes
And
sense.
it doesn't they
Like
don't necessarily say what has happened to Bruce, Diana, and Clark, but they're like in this little it's just literally like 3 pages is her first appearance. It's a whole thing, and it's supposed to be somewhere in
oh,
the future. Yeah.
okay. So that's in the
It's like a
future.
future snippet,
Interesting.
but nobody knows when it's coming. Nobody knows
Okay.
when she's going to get fully, introduced. Because, so my guess is that's kind of where I think Philip Kennedy Johnson and people like Chip Zdarsky are slowly leading this generation into. Because I mean, we can all admit that we've kind of been wanting to see Damien get past fucking 12. The man,
Yeah.
the kid's been 12 for like what 15 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, I know
It would be nice to see him, like that's his thing. He's the
the kid.
stubborn
Yeah.
kid. And
Sometimes
but they've
it's
done
hard
like
to take him
they
seriously as when you're reading as a
yeah.
33-year-old man. It's like, all right, dude.
So, okay, how much how much time we got left? Because I just noticed this thing has a timer. Um, all right. Did you read Dark Crisis?
I did, yes.
Okay. So because you bring up this potential future of new characters. I do not understand what they're when I read Dark Crisis, I'm like, oh, we got John Kent, we got the hell's her name? Wonder Girl. I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
Joe Mullane, and then they kept Wally West around as the Flash. They brought Black Adam in, and I'm like, all right, is this going to be the new Justice
Yeah.
League? They have these younger characters that are coming in to take up the mantle. The end of the series, Bruce Wayne's like, Dick, you're the leader now. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm into this. And then Dawn of the DC starts, and like, never mind.
Yeah, it doesn't really go anywhere.
It didn't go anywhere. And they're like, no, it's the Titans now. The Titans are the big
Yeah.
deal. And I'm like, why?
I've still been
But
waiting
why?
for this big reveal. I'm with you, dude. I'm like,
Yeah.
so what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like
So,
all they've done is
uh,
mention that the Justice League is disbanded like 3 or 4 times, but nobody's doing
you know,
anything about it.
right. Well, the Titans are taking up that mantle,
Yeah.
and that's what their book's about.
Okay. All right.
And I'm like, all right, sure, but what was that? What happened to those other characters that were really interesting?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we could have seen that. Like, we already know what the Titans
Yep.
are, and I'm wondering if this is just a bridging point. But then you bring up the potential future of new characters like Trinity and Damian being Batman, and I'm like, all right, are we gonna like when Future State happened? I had no idea because some things in Future State happened in the present, and then some things were not,
Dude,
and then some of the things were like one-off stories. At least that's how it
which
felt anyway. I had no idea what was going
yeah,
on.
and it led into like either what I think Infinite Frontier was either before or after. It was all after Metal, right? It was
Yeah,
so
yeah, I think, yeah,
confusing, dude. Like I enjoyed the stories, but I'm like, because you had the whole like dark detective thing, but then he just goes back to being Batman.
yeah, and like Dark Detective was such a cool looking
Oh,
character.
it was so cool. He was like the best bat suit, dude. It was so fucking like the
Yeah.
trench coat and everything. I've got that McFarlane next to the comic. I love that look. But like then you had Lucius Sunsfox, Jace, who was
Who does not have a series right
no,
now.
he was kind of a fucking prick, and he's just like, I'm gonna be Batman now, and like, but nobody fucking asked you to be. He doesn't even talk to the Bat family. I'm like, you're the worst Batman. You can't just say I'm Batman now. You know,
He's
you literally stole a suit out of your dad's office. I'm Batman now. No, you're not. That's not how that works.
so yeah, now you got me really wondering what's gonna happen. Is this potential future gonna be another event where we see the
I don't.
future
I
character?
guess.
Like,
I guess.
holy, my head hurts.
I know,
I
man.
just I just want to read like I mean we've been talking a lot about DC Comics, which is like I'm a bigger DC fan than
Sure.
Marvel. But like I still want to take a break from these big superhero universes too and give the comic book medium like a fair attempt. I don't know. I like to I want to read things that aren't
Yeah.
part of giant universes and that are independent creations too.
Those are some of the
Um
best. I will say I do read a lot of indie digital stuff, and sometimes I'm just like, man, they're fucking doing it right.
yeah,
I hate to say that.
let's see. No, I mean it makes sense. It's like you have a concise story. You're not going to get it screwed up with what this guy's writing and what's going to happen in the future and what may potentially there's a committee deciding things
Yeah,
and but let's see, let's look at what's on my list for that real quick. Local Man,
I've heard good things.
uh Junkyard Joe, Love Everlasting is by Tom King. That's really
Oh,
good.
cool.
His his goal was to upend the classic romance comic genre
Yeah.
and turn it into something different.
All right.
So it gets kind of like I mean, read it, it's good.
Okay.
But a woman is caught in this loop of classic romance cliches
Yeah.
and keeps dying and then waking up in another life where she has to live another classic romance cliche, and then she becomes aware of it and tries to break out of it.
Cool.
It's a lot of fun. Let's see, Vanish. I was issue 1 and probably issue 2. I was 110%
Yeah.
in, and then by the end, um, it just lost me completely. I just couldn't follow it. But now I'm just listing off titles. I don't know what I'm
Well,
doing.
you
So
you're not the only one. My buddy Greg, who goes by Paperweights Collects on Instagram, um, there are a lot of people, not just him, when it comes to indie, unfortunately. Not that they all drop off, but I hear a lot of people, they'll talk about the first two or three, and then more so than not, I hear people say, but it just kind of, or it's just not. And it's like with indie stuff, I hear a lot of complaints for some reason where after the third or fourth, they just kind of start fizzling out. And I
Yeah.
think that's why I've seen some really good stories end after four. Like I was reading Jeff Lemire's The Bone Orchard Mythos, the first part called 10,000 Black Feathers. And it
Okay.
was so good, but it was only four issues. Now they're going into a sequel called Tenement, which I think it's on its second issue right now, and it's in the Bone Orchard Mythos. But like they did it just enough to leave you wanting more, and it's like four's not enough, but yet is it though? Because like, is it going to start sucking at five? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So now people are starting to. Now a lot of writers are starting to kind of like, we're just going to do 4 and 5 and see how that works. You know?
Well, yeah, I think shorter is always better too, especially with comic books. Like you gotta tie it up quickly while they're feeling good about
Yeah,
it.
especially if you're not dealing with
Um,
characters who've been around for ages.
right, and I felt the same way with shit, what's it called? Oh, come on. I can see the cover. I don't what is it? Kyle Higgins. Hold on.
You're good.
It's an image book. They did like Rogues, Radiant Black.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah. They had like so many offshoot titles too, right? Like Pink,
Yeah, well, that's
Red.
what killed me was like the first arc of Radiant Black. I didn't get like I think it ties up perfectly. I think it's an insanely perfect
Yeah,
ending with vibrant color and vibrant artwork, and then they break down the relationship between these two young guys. They're like, we don't have to compare ourselves to each other. We live different lives. Like you don't have to feel bad about this. I don't have to feel bad about that. And then the artwork as they develop, as they break that down, the artwork follows suit, and it's just a really good comic book, specifically a comic book
yeah,
too, not just a story, but like everything, the sequential flow of art all matches up. And after that, here's another character, here's another character, here's an offshoot, and I just didn't care at
yeah,
all. And I like, oh man, like I get it if you're trying to do like a Power Ranger type thing, maybe keep them all together. I don't know,
yeah,
like it fell off completely for me. Same thing with Something Is Killing the
yeah.
Children. And we just like give me one or two graphic novel style, and that's all you
Dude,
need.
I literally stopped reading after issue 3 of House of Slaughter because I just was not interested in
Yeah,
Aaron
I
like
just
at
didn't
all.
care.
I just was not
Like,
interested in his character.
yeah, I didn't. And he went out like in a weak way in the main story too. So I already had
Yeah,
that like impressed upon me for his character.
yep.
And so
Why
yeah,
do I need to
jeez,
invest my
and
time in a character I know that is just going to die after not even making a stand? He
you're
just
right.
got tore
And
apart immediately.
I think the only indie book that's super lengthy that I finished was Invincible.
Oh, cool.
And that was I mean I still think like Invincible is one of my favorite series of all time.
I've got that on my
So I think
reading
it
list.
oh my god, it's so good. And that's um I could because I'm just like a superhero fanboy,
Sure.
I don't know. But yeah, I think most of the time for indie, like wrap it up.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like and that's storytelling in general. Like if you're gonna tell a story, like I'd rather read something that ends that's written well by a writer I like than like get invested in another character
Yeah.
that I am expected to follow
Right.
for years. Like I don't want to. And it could be because maybe younger audiences are more apt to do that
Yeah.
with new characters. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. That's how I feel about that.
Yeah.
But let's see. What's got like 15 minutes left on this thing. Um yeah, man, I want to talk more about the other DC Dawn of DC storylines going on right
Yeah.
now. And I really want to get into you own a flea market store, right?
We're yeah. We every Saturday, and sometimes on Sundays too, if we can bide our time appropriately. It's a chore because I, with the conditions, we keep everything. Of course, we do fair market value based on like the actual grades because I've been dabbling in raw grading for like the past year and a half, and
Hmm.
um, so I keep everything here, obviously, because like I'm not going to keep my stuff at a flea market. Because it's not your typical flea market books. It's not just whatever $1 thrown
Hmm.
in. No, no, we consider ourselves an LCS, even though we're not technically brick and mortar yet. We have
Right,
the
but that's
care.
where
You know what I mean?
LCSs are going. Like you gotta. I mean, maybe I don't know, but in my opinion, you gotta save your money if you want to own a physical comic book store.
Especially now. Especially now.
So I love going to flea markets. There's so many shops around here. Um, I love doing that. So you go. But you're like you're a classic LCS. I mean, I'm sure you have dollar bins, but you got wall books and you got everything in
That's
between.
right. That's right. We got a nice
Um,
display that we set up on, and the tables that we use. I've got little picture frame holders that any books that we have that are higher end, the Mylar and stuff like that, like the ones that are near mint plus and near mint and all that good stuff in Mylar. And of course, we've got some old, really old, close to in between silver and bronze Tarzan and
hmm.
stuff like House of Secrets and some cool older
Hmm.
books like that and stuff. But yeah, we got a lot of short boxes to dig through. Yep,
Yeah,
and I keep them all
I just
separated
have
and everything too.
I have four short boxes, a couple of slabs, and I just sell on eBay.
Nice,
That's as large as I am right now.
nice.
But there's plenty of I have thought about like I've always wanted to do something physical
Yeah.
somewhere, even if I just brought a long box of dollar books to where kids might be, which is a weird thing to say. I'm not going to hang out
No, I
inside
get it. I
outside of
get it.
school, but like you know what I
Yeah,
mean. Like just there's the hawk some dollar books out there. Like that would be fun. But there's a flea market close to me that I could try selling at. But I frequent flea market shops
yeah,
because they're just like it's so much fun to dig around and find either a really good deal or just find a book that you really want in your collection. Or there was a guy in Tiverton, Rhode Island, is the close one, and he had a bunch of he would buy a bunch of long boxes, and he's an older guy. He doesn't really know comics very
yeah.
well, and so I dig through, and I was able to flip a bunch of books
Cool.
that I bought for $1 from him. That was a lot of
Yeah,
fun, and
that's how
he's
you
like
find
he
your
was
gold
fine with
right there.
yeah, and he you could tell these books like were sitting in a warehouse for God knows how long because the Valiant number ones are $20.
Right. Oh God.
And I'm like, nope, no way.
Jesus Christ, no. I literally just basically gave a shit ton of Valiant books away and like older image characters that nobody cared. It was like close to, of course, there was like some Epic and some Comico and just a bunch of nothing books that were
Yeah,
never going to move.
Epic. Yeah, I've seen a lot of
Yeah,
those.
I had literally like 410 of them. I sold them for 45 bucks, bro, just to
Yeah,
get
it's
rid of
tough.
them.
Right, and that's what I hear. And like, I made that one and only mistake. I swear to God, but it was I bought like a small short box of indie, and it was sold to me because I didn't know what Next Men was, but it was sold to me because Hellboy's first appearance is in
Oh
Next Men.
yeah, yeah,
Still, still sitting on that Next Men.
right,
Like, no one.
right,
Then like there's like some hardcore and there's some Exo
yeah.
Manowar, like some Valiant stuff. Like I like Bloodshot.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Bloodshot's a cool
I
character.
yeah, but like and like if I could find a Rye number one, that would be solid.
Oh,
But
what? I think I had a few rides, but I didn't have a number one though.
yeah, like I have Rye Zero,
Yeah,
which is like a fun Valiant book to own. I have Bloodshot One; those are fun. Shadowhawk isn't Valiant, but first appearance of Shadowhawk, I've got like five of
dude,
those.
I ended up with like
Um,
78 copies of like Shadowhawk number 3, and I'm like, what the fuck? Bro? Why do I? And like one of those Shadowhawks had an appearance of Spawn, and I was like,
yeah,
oh shit, this is probably going to be. And I looked at the fair market value, and it's like 9.4. It was like $1, and I'm like. And then I
yeah.
opened it up and I saw it was clearly not drawn by Todd McFarlane because some of those interiors are fucking rough. Oh
Oh
my
God.
gosh, some of them are
And like
hard to look
I
at.
have Yeah, I have Shadow Hawk. I don't know what it is. You probably have seen it, but it's a cutout cover, and then there's a silver inlay, and you close the cover, and it's cut out in Shadow Hawk's shape,
Yeah,
and the
so
silver comes through the
for
hole.
all the cool covers they did, they did a crap ton of cool covers, and it's like, oh man,
Yeah,
this looks like it should be worth $7, and it's
right.
not at
Well,
all.
it's interesting because um, I got to talk to you about pricing, but next time we talk.
Yeah,
But Um, it's interesting because I had the first long box I bought had a lot of epic, I actually had a lot of Vampirella, which
hmm,
I should have sat on
yeah,
longer because I know people still like that
oh
character.
yeah,
But it had these Dark Horse books by Frank Miller,
cool. Was it
I think.
X?
It was
Yeah,
X.
yeah, cool
The
character.
first time I ever saw X, I'm like, oh neat, that's a Frank Miller thing I've never
Yeah.
seen. I had a foil cover, and like they were kept in hard plastic sheets, so people clearly thought this was going to be
Oh,
something.
of course. Yeah, yeah.
And it didn't end up being anything.
Was it one
But
with like the
I
black
ended up
cover with like the red foily X?
no, it was all silver. Like I think it was a black cover, but it was all silver
Okay.
um
Yeah.
foil. And I ended up selling one for $10.
Damn.
And I'm like, holy shit!
Damn.
Like I just posted it up for 10 because I liked
Yeah,
it.
no kidding.
And I'm like, if anyone wants it, give me $10. Like, otherwise, I want to keep it.
Right.
And they bought it for 10. I gave them the other one for free because I had like a spine ticker too.
Yeah.
And but I'm like, holy shit, someone bought this.
And it's weird too because some of those Shadow Hawk, like the harder covers, and some of those X, they actually hold their condition pretty well, surprisingly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, in that box, I ended up I sold the set of, and that's indie box. Speaking, it was like now it's like, oh, I gotta stay as far away from indie as
Dude.
possible.
Yes.
But people still like Tops comics. People still like that.
Yeah.
I grab a Tops comic if I find something that's
Yeah.
interesting. Um, and then what was it? It was Tops. It was the Jurassic Park Raptor
Oh, cool.
set. You find them like sealed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, those are
So
freaking cool.
I sold that for a steal. I mean, if you look at the other eBay prices, or eBay
Yeah.
sales, I'm like, whatever. But I sold it, and it was indie. Excuse me. And then it was the set of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Nice.
I sold that too.
Nice.
So people still seem to like Tops. I have, you've seen the oh God, what's his name? Jack Kirby,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Jack Kirby's Tops covers. He has I think it's Night Glider is one of them.
Cool.
You see him all over the place.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like I had I started to see, like, I love the old gimmicky stuff, comics that would come with 3D glasses.
Oh yeah, I've sold some of
I
those Fright Night books for like $5
Yeah,
a pop,
Fright
bro.
Night. It was so much
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
I think I sold one for $1.
I think I had a
And
Ghostbusters too that had 3D glasses in
yes,
it.
yeah, Ghost. Like if you can find the even if they're indie, but they're still IPs that people like, that's not
You,
bad. But
you know,
Valiant is like having a bunch of fun. I don't know what you'd compare it
I,
to, but nobody wants. Even though people will defend it till they die,
absolutely, they'll die on that
nobody
hill.
wants to buy
They'll
it.
die. Yeah, right, right. You'll die on that hill, but you won't buy from it.
Yeah.
You know. Well, and like there's damn, which one was I gonna bring up? I'm trying to think. I was brainstorming on shit, I completely forgot. Oh gosh, that's gonna bug me. I was thinking about Fright Night and all the fun books and everything. My brain shut down on me, I guess. Sorry. I don't know where I was
uh,
going with that. My bad.
was it a gimmick or was it just a fun book?
Oh gosh, I honestly, it's like somebody came in and just completely erased my
It fell out
memory.
of your
I
ears.
think it was
Yeah.
one that I had sold for pretty cheap, but I can't remember what the heck I was gonna. I was on the track of Fright Night and Ghostbusters, and then it's just like I completely forgot
And
what
it
I was
fell
gonna
out.
say.
I'm gonna wrap this
Yeah,
up,
man.
and then when we close the call, I'm gonna go through quickly this indie box with you, just because I feel motivated to take a look
Yeah,
inside. Um, so yeah, but next time we talk, I would like to get into pricing because that's something that, like, I'll do. The most I'll do is I'll check recent
sure.
sales. and that's kind of how I'll do that. But I'd like to learn a little bit more if you're willing to teach,
Yeah, yeah, of course.
and yeah, and like, hey, if you want to do it again, let's do it
Yeah,
again.
man, this was fun.
Um, absolutely. All right, so let's close it out. Goodbye, everybody. I don't know if anyone's going to listen to this, but other than maybe my parents and maybe a friend or two.
Right,
But thanks for listening if you
and
did,
I can share it
and we'll
around
see you
too.
later. Yeah, yeah, do so.